Hello, my name is Eva Lloyd and I'm a lecturer in the Faculty of Arts, Design and Architecture at UNSW Sydney. Today I'm going to talk about a Cambodia-based community-engaged urban studies program that we transitioned to virtual mode at the end of 2020 in response to COVID-19 related border closures. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the really far-reaching network of collaborators who have been involved in shaping the Cambodia program over the past 5 years. Our academic partners and all of our student participants, our placement hosts who I'll talk a lot about today, and our urban humanitarian and development sector guests, as well as our travel scholarship donors. So stemming from my own experience as an architect working in humanitarian and development sectors in Southeast Asia, I've long been an advocate for built environment students to engage in immersive, place-based learning around the world that fosters direct connection and also benefit to citizens on the ground. And I call this place-based, people-centered learning. This kind of learning has an emphasis on direct observation, on listening, and on learning with rather than designing for. And these really visceral international service learning experiences can be truly transformative for students. So, when we're looking at experiences like this for students, is this transformative learning still possible when these courses transition into online settings? So what I'm going to talk about today is one part of a broader Cambodia urban studies program that engages students with a range of community engaged projects exploring on-the-ground vulnerability and resilience in Phnom Penh through the lens of the built environment. And this is a work-integrated learning course called the Cambodia Professional Project. The program runs in partnership with 2 Cambodian urban sector not-for-profit organisations, Sasa Art Projects and New Khmer Architecture. And when I say runs in partnership, I mean we have now been working together for 10 years and we collaborate really closely, not just in the running of the project, but the development of the project, the implementation of it, and the evaluation of it every year. And so this program teams usually 8 to 10 students every year from UNSW Sydney, with 3 Cambodian universities, including the Royal University of Fine Arts, the Institute of Technology, and Norton University. The Cambodia program grew from an urban street life studies studio course in 2015. And in 2018, the month-long professional project was added kind of as a bookend to the studio course. In 2020, we ran the professional project in hybrid mode, with students face-to-face in Australia and in Cambodia, meeting together and with their supervisors online. And in 2021, with lockdowns in both Sydney and in Phnom Penh, the course is in the midst right now of running fully online. And I guess I wanted to share this history and kind of note its importance, because the relationships between universities and these not-for-profit professional project partners have been really consistent over the years. And it's really the strength and trust in these relationships and a shared interest in sustaining them and in continuing to kind of offer support and opportunity to students and to our partner communities that prompted us to pilot the program online and to continue this year in 2021. So when we situate the online versions of this course within Sandy and Franco's e-service learning framework, we see that the hybrid model that I was just referring to, so where we had students face-to-face in both countries meeting together online, is referred to as service e-learning, where instruction and service are partially online and partially on-site, in partnership usually with a single community, much like would happen in the face-to-face model. The fully online model that I referred to, that we're running right now, is type 4, which in our case is termed distributed service learning, in that students engage in activities with multiple communities via online digital tools. And because of the fact that both instruction and service are fully online. And Waldner refers to this model as extreme service learning. So if we look at these two e-service learning models, we're really keen to understand if online, international, community-engaged education can foster in students a connection to place, intercultural collaboration skills, and a sense of civic engagement. But also, are there interconnectivities between these three aspects? So what I'd like to talk through now are just a few examples of how we've tried to foster these aspects in the online Professional Project Cambodia course, and some very early evaluations of this. So first of all, can a connection to place be fostered online? It's often argued that a connection to place grounds service learning, and that this grounding in place prompts a sense of connection and also a sense of responsibility. And this is of particular relevance to the field of built environment, and is somewhat straightforward when we're able to physically locate ourselves in a place. So what we've tried to do online is build what we call a web of place connections for students, allowing them to incrementally build attachment to Phnom Penh, which is our city of focus. And we scaffold these connections, beginning with self-reflection and peer-to-peer sharing of experiences of place in home cities around the world, including Phnom Penh. We then move to an exploration of place through citizen voices on social media. And we use drawing as a really powerful cognitive tool to analyse and embed ideas in one's thought processes more strongly. We then move to a much more direct and almost visceral connection to place through Phnom Penh community interviews and also guest discussions. And we interweave all of this with other aspects of place that are equally important and rich. And so in this course, that includes weekly language lessons, lunchtime food selfies, and Khmer film nights. One error we made last year in the first online iteration of the course was that because of the rush nature of the transition, we took a fairly ad hoc approach to our virtual meeting places. And I think what we learnt there is that this really meant a kind of sense of placelessness as an online learning community. And so this year what we've tried to do is structure our virtual places a little bit more than we did last year, so that we've created a series of formal and informal virtual meeting places. We've created an open source WordPress site so that students and community partners, regardless of their institution or geographic location, are able to access the project and also contribute to it more actively. And we've linked this, as you can see in the middle here, to a public Miro board, which we use to capture students' project work and to prompt discussion in our weekly meetings. What we've also done is set up an international placement chit-chat group on Facebook. And this is really great just for those day-to-day sort of office corridor conversations that happen throughout the week. In our focus group session following the first iteration of the online course, one comment that arose was that a sense of connection to Cambodia and to Phnom Penh was definitely fostered in the online context, but there were certain aspects of place that simply could not be experienced online. But rather than a negative, this was actually discussed as a driver to now want more, to now want to visit Cambodia and to see it through eyes that have a much greater ability to understand the nuance of place than may have been possible if this student had simply taken this course directly face-to-face in Cambodia. And another student made a similar comment that it gave insight, the online course gave insight into Cambodia, but now I want to go there even more. A connection to place is nurtured here, as we can see, through connections to people. And since the inception of the Cambodia program in 2015, we've really tried to place great importance on always working in partnership with students and institutions in Cambodia and Australia, and building skills not only in urban design and built environment practice, but in intercultural collaboration. So shifting online, this was something that myself and the workplace hosts really talked about as a crucial facet to maintain and to improve if possible. So rather than building cultural literacy through kind of learning the fixed knowns of a particular culture, if there are any, we discuss identity and we talk about it in terms of multiplicity and flux or dynamism. So students are prompted to learn about one another and to collaborate as teams through an understanding of the diverse and changing identities that make up each of us. They're prompted to reflect on identity in terms of culture and one's personal interpretation of culture. And again, we do that through drawing. They're prompted to think about identity in terms of place. And here we do that in a visual sense. So each week we have a background of our place that we're geographically located in as our Zoom background. And we share that and discuss that. They're prompted to think about identity in terms of their disciplinary background. This is an interdisciplinary course within the field of built environment. And they're also prompted to think about identity in terms of their modes of working in a team. So we focus on cultural reflexivity rather than literacy, and the ability of students to adapt to situations and new knowledge as it builds over time. We kind of prompt students to accept that it's okay to be uncertain, and it's also okay to embrace the ability to change your views. So separate to the project itself, students actually develop a team charter, and the aim of this is to capture how these diverse identities will come together and how they'll adapt to change over the course. And so we revisit this, we start at the beginning, we revisit it in the middle, and then again at the end. So through our focus group discussions, some of the comments arose were that through working with teammates, stronger connections were made, not just through understanding kind of disciplinary knowledge and discussion of the project itself, but better connections occurred through things outside of the project. And another student commented, unprompted by us, that I took the approach of learn as you go, adapt as you experience. And this is exactly the kind of mindset that we were trying to foster. We speak a great deal about the invaluable and primary role of voices from the ground, and more broadly of prioritising local knowledge. And this sits against the backdrop of colonial practices that have really squashed these voices. This is of particular importance when considering the teams, so student teams, as we have students in this course who may have had no prior interaction with Cambodia or Cambodian people, or vice versa with other cultures. And so we establish mixed teams every year of students from UNSW Sydney with students from our Cambodian partner universities. And we reflect that in us. We work in this intercultural collaborative team. And what we do is ask students to act as the eyes on the ground and to really own that role, drawing on their lived experience and liaising directly with community members, both face-to-face when that was possible, and this year online. And then relaying findings and building the skills to do that back to UNSW students who support with surrounding research and by drawing their own inserts and interpretations of these findings. And so our UNSW students have commented on this each year and say often that it's an eye-opening experience, as we can see in the quote here, that taught us the value of having a local person there to be your eyes and ears and understand the context. Interestingly, a couple of times now the comment has arisen that students felt that they wanted to engage more, they wanted to engage more directly, and that particularly online, they felt that they were observing or shadowing more than interacting, and this was seen as a negative. I'm not sure that it is a negative. Even when we're face-to-face, students interview community members in Khmer, in local language, and so UNSW students are also observing or shadowing there. And perhaps this is what we need to do as those who are not from the context. Perhaps that's the first step. And maybe that's something that we need to teach students to value a little bit more. So one question we asked is for students to reflect on their learning at the end of the course in a number of areas. And two of those that relate to this topic are cultural sensitivity and cross-cultural communication. So when we look at students' experience of these aspects face-to-face and then online, we can actually see that there's not a huge amount of difference. So face-to-face, 9 out of 10 students felt that their learnings in cultural sensitivity and cross-cultural communication were more than expected, or the highest rating, a lot. And 5 out of 7 students in the online version felt that their learnings in these areas were more than expected, or a lot. In fact, 7 out of 7 students in the online version felt that their learnings were more than expected, or a lot. One hypothesis we have is that a strong sense of attachment to place and to people, whether online or face-to-face, can help to foster a willingness to be civically engaged. And by civic engagement here, we refer to active participation in public life to improve conditions for others and to challenge the status quo. We foster this civic engagement by developing a kind of co-developing research projects that ask students to examine urban initiatives led by everyday citizens that have local and global relevance and interconnectivities. And so in the current context, we have built environment students examining quite universal themes. So they're looking at the role of public space in supporting citizen-driven initiatives that support marginalised groups in the pandemic. And so students here are able to draw on personal experience, no matter their geographic location, to help form a connection to the project. And we believe this helps to drive that sense of civic engagement. And students are able to look at examples of design by everyday active citizens as precedents of civic engagement through the crafting and manipulation or the design of the built environment. And again, we found that the online context made very little difference to how empowered students felt to contribute to the local community through the projects. And so if we have a look here at the face-to-face mode, 4 out of 6 students felt highly empowered to contribute to the local community through the projects. And in the online mode, again, 4 out of 6 students felt highly empowered to contribute to the local community through the projects. Now the case or the respondent numbers are very low here, but the similarities is probably of note, and this is something that we'd like to investigate a little bit further and for longer time periods. And so in our focus group, these findings were emphasised, and one of our Cambodian students commented on not expecting to see so much value and importance in creating and designing in collaboration with the community, saying that it made him realise that perhaps this is something I want to explore further down my career path and something that I'm unexpectedly passionate about doing. And so I think it's important to note here that for all of this to occur in an authentic manner, we really need to acknowledge the relationships that kind of underpin this whole program. And we talk about this as an ecosystem, one that over the past 10 years has been allowed time to evolve, is dynamic and constantly changing, is often very messy, but exists with trust, with empathy, and with an ability to be flexible. So if we have these relationships and we know that they're able to build authentic, online, international service learning experiences that foster a sense of civic engagement through place attachment and intercultural collaboration, but also that they can do other things. They can offer opportunity to students otherwise unable to participate in experiences like this due to financial hardship, caring responsibility, political oppression, that they can reduce burden on communities who don't always have the capacity for on-the-ground student engagement, and that they can minimise our environmental impact, then perhaps we need to consider that these educational experiences might stay. They might exist alongside the crucial face-to-face learning that probably will always have a place in higher education for international community engaged experiences. But perhaps online and face-to-face learning can be interwoven or scaffolded in a more holistic manner. Perhaps it doesn't have to be either or. If you would like to discuss any of this further, or if you have any questions, I really welcome the discussion. My name is Eva Lloyd, and you can contact me on e.lloyd@unsw.edu.au. You can also find out more about the Cambodia programs at issue.com/streetlifestudies and also at placesandpeople.org. Thanks again for your time.